Rafa, welcome to Strategy Simplified. Thank you for being here today.
Sure, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me today, Noah.
Absolutely. Can you start us off by just telling us a little bit about yourself, giving us a little bit of background, and maybe a 30-second introduction of your background before consulting and before McKinsey?
Sure, of course. So I'm from Brazil. I was born and raised in Avaré, a city in the countryside. Currently, I live in São Paulo, where I graduated from law school. But during law school, I was always involved in business topics like financial markets, innovation, technology. And I believe this wish to learn different things is what led me to consulting. I stayed at McKinsey for almost 4 years in the São Paulo office. And then I left to pursue my entrepreneurship passion with startups, early stage startups. And that's what I'm doing today.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that background. So diving a little bit deeper into the law side of things, you went to law school. Did you intend to kind of go into business after that? Were you thinking about going into law? Walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, I have a different path in that sense. Like at least in Latin America, it's not so common. Here in Brazil, we all, or most of us, start university at like 17, 18, 19, something like that. So we need to make the decision pretty soon. And at 16, I decided that I want to go to law school, and I was approved with 17, and I started by them. But I was always interested in like economics topics and business topics. And during law school, this started to become more clear. But I was able to carve my path in law school. So I used the structure to found a club of financial markets. So I engaged with people that was also interested in business. So this helped me. And then when I was 20 years old, like in the middle of law school, here in Brazil is 5 years, I applied to the only position that McKinsey had for me there that was, they called Summer Business Analyst Intern. It's a program that you stay there for 3 months as a business consultant. And if you do a good job, they extend you an offer to come back and do a 1-year internship. And then by that time, usually only engineering students would get that position. So I was the first non-engineer to be approved for that 3 months program. And I joined and I noticed that I would never want to go back to law.
Well, interesting. So you said you started as kind of a traditional 3-month intern, and then you moved into a 1-year internship program. I think that's something that a lot of our listeners here in the US might not be familiar with. It's a little bit different than how the process works here. So can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So here in Brazil, it's very common to have internship positions for all types of graduation programs and for different firms and even startups and other companies. So McKinsey started to offer here in Brazil this summer intern program that was only 3 months, in addition to the program that they already had that was like the 1-year internship program. But the summer program you do while like on vacation from university. And then if you do a good job, as I told you, like they extend you an offer to do like a 1-year internship. And this 1-year internship you do while you are at the university, usually at your last year. And if you do a good job there, again, you receive an offer, a full-time offer. And that's what happened to me. But within the internship programs, you have almost the same experience as a normal business consultant, a business analyst or associate, as what they call in some firms. So you are a part of some client engagements and you act like an analyst in that engagement. Of course, the expectations are different and the time you dedicate to that is different, but you have actually the real experience of what a consultant will do.
Makes sense. How difficult was it to balance going to school at the same time as working at McKinsey?
At the beginning, it was difficult for me because as I was doing law school, I had a different background. I was very concerned about like proving myself. Like I'm good enough with the quant side. I can do this job. I can perform like the engineers or the people that majored in business and things like that. So I was always trying to prove myself. So in that sense, I believe I pushed myself very hard while back in school. But then once I started to get more confident, like after 6 months, like 2 projects, 3 projects, I felt that I could set my limits. Like, oh, this time is the time that I will not work, that I will focus on school. And then I noticed that they were actually really open with that. They always tell us that like we should communicate and set our boundaries and the things that are important for us. But I hadn't the courage to do that before. And once I realized it, I started to do like always. I would say like, oh, I need to. Actually, for my last 2 projects, while an intern, I negotiated with them that I would work only 3 days in the week. So for 3 days, I would work more hours, and then 2 days I would not work, and I would be only focused on the university. And that worked pretty well with me, and they always respected. So it's a matter of aligning with the HR, aligning with your team, and you making sure everyone is aware of what you need.
No, it makes sense, and really impressive that you were able to kind of balance those 2 big commitments at the same time. You also mentioned that you were kind of the first person with this legal background to break into this pipeline, and that most people were coming from more engineering backgrounds, more technical backgrounds. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got involved with Mackenzie in the first place in terms of recruiting? What was your recruiting process like? Do you have maybe 1 to 2 insights to help folks kind of going through similar pipelines?
Yeah, sure. I think what helped me a lot, I haven't heard about McKinsey in the first years of law school. I've only heard about because a friend started interning there, and he told me it was amazing, and he was very like related to things that he knew I like it, like the financial markets, the technology, etc. And then I started like doing a lot of research about what is consultancy, what are the big firms, what they actually do, what the type of the projects they do. So I think this pre-work of understanding this word that is so distant from a lot of us and like our families for most of us. So understanding what this word is about and the opportunities I could have there was the first thing for me. And then the second was starting to engage. Like follow on social media, going to every event they had in person or virtual. So I would go to any webinar or things like that to get information about the recruitment process, about the life after you get accepted. And this was very helpful for me because I made real connections with the recruiters and with other analysts that were already there. And those connections are helpful because they provide you with some tips for the interviews and those kinds of process that you have and all these steps. So connecting, whether it's through events or through like LinkedIn, trying to get to know people that are already there, it's very helpful. I would definitely recommend that.
Now, again, the importance of connections and the importance of networking both within and when you're going in and once you're at the firm, a common thread that we see here and talk about here. So you've since left Mackenzie. You mentioned that, and you're now involved in entrepreneurship and fintech. A couple questions here. First, how did you get involved there? How did you make that transition? What did that look like? And then pivoting back to consulting, what are the top skills that you kind of learned there? How have they helped you in entrepreneurship in this world of fintech? What does that look like?
Yeah, sure. Starting with the fintech part, I'm involved in financial markets since university, as I mentioned. So that club that I co-founded, and I always pursued that subject in law school. So it seemed like a path that made sense for me to pursue afterwards. But what I really like are startups, early stage or scale up, where I can make an impact, putting together like business and technology. I think this is even more important for me than whether it's financial markets or something else. And getting into your question regarding what McKinsey brought me that I take to this day, is I would highlight 3 things. So one is the data analytics fluence. So I'm very data driven today, and I carry that with me everywhere I go. And this is very helpful because we get to those startups or even bigger companies, and they don't have this eye for data, or they don't know how to analyze the data. So this is helpful in any situation. The second is how to approach problems in a structured way. So today we work with ambiguity daily. And what makes a difference is that like, okay, we know we have a problem, but here's how we can break down this problem and the parts we can solve and how we can solve. And this is gold for me. It helps me even in my daily life. And then the third thing I would say is the ability that you develop to align people and communicate with people, whether it's like high leadership from McKinsey or from clients, or is connecting with people that is like analysts or would be your peers on the companies and getting their buy-in and their trust. And this is helpful everywhere.
Makes a lot of sense. And again, just more kind of on the transferable skills. And that's one thing that people really look for, when going into consulting. In terms of your career in consulting, your 4 years at McKinsey, do you have one to two words of wisdom for folks who are trying to decide, do I go into consulting or do I go into tech or do I go into finance? For people on the fence, what would you say?
Yeah, sure. It can be a difficult decision, especially like right now that we have all of these options and great firms that are rising. I would try to think about what you see yourself doing in the future, like for you, the skills and stamps you need to get there. So if that place in the future is already consultancy, like serving big clients and changing your context and always learning and being the frontier of that, great. Consultancy, it's for you, you know that. But even if you're thinking about other things, this was my case. I always knew I wanted to go to technology or like founder own company, those other things. They demand skills that consultancy can bring you. And they demand some stamps, and consultancy can play their role for you. So I always saw McKinsey as a place where I would learn a lot. I would meet great people that could be co-founders or even investors in the future. And I would have this stamp that is like, oh, she can do this. She can handle pressure. She can handle data, etc. So it was important for my journey. So I would think like in the future, in the near future, what you want to do, and if consultancy fits in one of those two categories.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And just thinking about consulting as a way to kind of set yourself apart. You work now in some capacity with Management Consulted here as a coach, and you help prepare candidates for interviews and for the application process at some of the world's top consulting firms like McKinsey, like Bain, like BCG. Can you tell us a little bit about the process that you run your clients through in terms of preparing for these interviews, preparing for this application? How do you set your clients up for success at these top firms?
Sure. I joined Management Consulted a while ago, and I love what I do here because I can be closer to people that are like following their dreams and applying, and I get to be a small portion of the help they're looking for. And the first thing for me is get to know the candidate in terms of what firms they want to apply, where they are in the process, how they feel about their strengths and weakness and then where they are struggling in the process to see how helpful I can be. And after understanding that, we can do like a case simulation. So I assess where the clients stand based on how they perform on the case. And this is very nice because sometimes the client think they have like a specific weakness, like, oh, I'm so good, so bad in math, and they are doing a great job. So that's why the case simulation helps a lot. And based on that, I provide like steps for them to be prepared, like considering the timeline they have. This could involve like sharing resources, drills, and things they can study by themselves, or recommending more case practice. I really like to help them build the confidence they need to succeed. Because a lot of times, again, people have the knowledge and skills, but they don't trust themselves yet. And the preparation comes in this sense as well, like to build this confidence that you can do it and that you're prepared for. So I focus on that.
So this approach in terms of, starting with kind of a diagnostic, figuring out strengths, weaknesses, and then, sort of building and focusing down from there. Does that mirror what you did to prepare, back when you were recruiting for consulting? Or is this an approach that you've kind of developed after seeing the recruiting process from the other side?
It's a mix from both. I would say that the spine of this is what I did for myself. Like reading about, getting familiar, understanding my weakness, and then studying by myself and practicing a lot. I always say like focus more on practicing than on reading those huge books and things like that, because I saw that the time I spent like reading those great books was kind of lost time in terms of the strict amount of time that I had and the lack of preparation. So I learned in the hard way that case preparation was more important for me in the place I was than reading things. So the spine is based on my experience, but I learned a lot along the way by coaching like more than 80, 100 people. So it's a mix of that. It's like best practice after all of that.
So in this, this group of 80, 100 plus people that you've worked with, can you identify 1 to 2 kind of key underrated skills or qualities that maybe people don't focus on as much, that you think really differentiates the top candidates from, kind of everybody else?
Yeah, I like that you said it underrated, because of course we could talk about structured communication, all of that, like bringing insights that we all know that is important. But there's like 2 things that I believe it's important, and I see this in some special candidates as well. That is, one is be conversational and show your thinking. Some people believe that they are almost taking a task. So they receive a question and they work silent to answer the question, and then they come back with like the answer. It's much better if you make it conversational. Like, oh, here's what I'm thinking. I will do this. I will do that. What do you think about it? Does it make sense? So you bring the interviewer together with you. So I see that this makes a lot of difference, even on how the interviewer responds to you, and they can kind of direct you to the right path. And the second thing comes in the same situation, that is, I always say, like, be coachable. Because if you are going on the wrong path and the interviewer come and say like, oh, what do you think about doing this other calculation, or about discussing these other things? Go with them. Like, it's usually not a trap or something that they want to test you. They want you to succeed. Most of them want you to succeed. So be coachable in the sense of like, be open to their ideas and their suggestions during the case.
Makes sense. Well, thank you for that. In terms of if people sort of logistically, want to work with you, they've heard your journey, heard your background, heard kind of what you bring to the table. And I have no doubt that there will be, a ton of clients out there that will hear this podcast and want to reach out and will work with you. Logistically speaking, what's the best way to get in touch? How can people work with you?
Yeah, so people can reach me in the NCA Management Consultant platform. Like, under the case coaching section, you can find my name and directly schedule a session. Or if you have any questions before that, I'm completely open to answer over LinkedIn or email. We can share that with you.
Awesome. And yeah, all of that information will be in the show notes for this episode as well. So we're almost done here. We like to wrap these up with a few kind of fun, kind of more personal questions. So I guess jumping into that, what's one thing that you're listening to or reading, watching, generally consuming, that you found inspiring and interesting lately? Yeah. I would say that I recently finished the Last Dance documentary that is on Netflix. It talks about Michael Jordan and the Bulls' journey. It was really impactful for me, like to see the drive and work ethic of Jordan and how he was always like striving to be the best. I recommend it. Yeah, great documentary. Big personal favorite as well. And so I guess last question here. One person from history that you would love to get dinner with, one conversation, that you'd like to have, and why? Probably not so usual, but I would say Tina Turner. I'm passionate about her story, her legacy of years in the entertainment. She recently passed, unfortunately, but I would love to get this opportunity. Well, awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much to all our listeners out there. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. And yeah, Rafa, thanks again for coming on. We really appreciate it. My pleasure.